Hello, I'm Alan Murakami, and I'm an author of a book about my uncle, Peter Masuoka, the uncle I never knew. And I was asked by Carol Kawase to present some information about this book and talk a bit about my Uncle Pete. I want to thank Carol for this opportunity to do this, as well as Bruce Shimizu, who is helping me record this for the audience, and also to Sonoma County JCL for their support of my work. I was asked to kind of describe my background in relation to Pete. He was my uncle, obviously, and he grew up here in Sonoma County along with my mom, who was his brother. And he had several other brothers here, and they attended local schools, Anley High School, elementary school. They had a farm here in Sebastopol. And after Pearl Harbor, they were incarcerated. And at Amachi in Colorado. And from there, Pete did volunteer for the Army, and he was in the 442nd Regimental Combat Team. He was in H Company, 2nd Battalion, which was attached to the 36th Infantry Division. I was asked about how I gathered information about writing this book, and I guess I just found myself in my teens and early 20s just going to family functions, and I would listen to Pete's brothers and my mom talk about him at family gatherings, funerals, receptions, and I would write down on napkins and programs these bits and pieces about him. And I saved them, and when we had shelter in place, I was persuaded to maybe start this book about this interesting person. And what was kind of hard about writing about it is that there wasn't a lot of information. His brothers didn't talk about him that much, and unfortunately, my grandfather, Pete's dad, during a understandable bout of significant grief, burned all of Pete's letters and Pete's medals. And so I have information from my mom and those notes, and a lot of information about his military time I gathered through different reference materials and books. Why, I guess, did I write this, and why is it so important at this important time to tell his story? Maybe it's a story that shows all of us that there's a bigger calling that we can participate in beyond our regular lives. Because Pete did answer the call. He volunteered for the service. For his family, he felt that it was important to participate defending the United States, even though his family was behind barbed wire. And I understand some families and some individuals had a different opinion. But when I asked my mom, she said, no, Pete and his brothers, they wanted to show that they were true Americans. Um, he was after he was in camp and he volunteered. Um, he went to Camp Shelby in Mississippi, and he was, uh, in the basic training there. And I think because he was such a good athlete, he lettered in high school. He um, he was on the teams. He was captain of the football team, etc. I think his athletic prowess led him to be seen by his drill sergeants as being very capable. So he was assigned as a staff sergeant. Uh, and also, those leadership skills were, I think, seen in camp too. He was, I think, a co-coach of some of the high school teams. So he had a lot of strong attributes that I think led him to be a leader of men in the service as well as other aspects of his life. Um, so Pete, after basic, was in the 442 and then was assigned to go over to First Italy, and he participated in the battles over there. And what I could gather was that he was in some sort of an artillery squad, and I'm sorry, I don't know the military terms as well as others. And but he also was close to the action in Italy and in France later. Um, and I'm not sure in what capacity, because I don't have a lot of information, but I believe he did see a lot of action. And in this one slide, it shows Pete, in basic, where he's holding the rifle, and then he's on leave in Italy. That's in Rome, I believe. And then the middle photograph is a pretty profound photograph. It was taken the day he died. I found this picture in my mom's past photo album, and I asked Mom, "Where did you get this?" And she said, "Oh, this was Pete's." And I turn it over, and it's dated the day he died. How he On that day, what happened was he was on a mission. He came back tired, and his commanding officer asked for volunteers to go out. There was wounded to be tended to, and another person was going to go, but that person who is in this picture, he's in the middle. Interesting, his last name's Murakami too. No relation. He said he couldn't go out. He was not feeling well, so Pete volunteered, and so he and his group went out to tend to the wounded, and Pete heard an artillery shell coming in, and so he ordered his men to dive, I believe, to the left. He dove to the right, and the shell exploded, and Pete died. The rest of his men were okay, thank goodness. So after Pete was killed, the rest of his buddies said they were not going to leave their friend out there, so they went and got a truck and brought him back to camp. And he was first buried in France, and then a year or two later, he was escorted by military escort back to the States, and where he is now interred at the Golden Gate Military Cemetery in San Bruno. Pete was, I think, a very quiet leader, humble. My Aunt Ginger Masuoka, she shares stories of how Pete was just this really remarkable person. many testimonies that I was able to record describe him as someone that you would just so appreciate having as a good friend. And he, from that quiet leadership, modesty, going over and beyond, was really kind of a model for me on what I aim for in my life. And I'm sure there are so many other Nisei and other World War II veterans and other veterans in our military who are the same. And I have great respect for all of those individuals. Um, this slide that we just saw was had Pete in it and two other remarkable individuals, Leo Kikuchi, Joe Yasuda, who also died over in Europe defending the United States. They all went to school together, I believe, here at Anley High School. So Pete's story is initially, I entered this task of writing about him, not really knowing where it would take me, and yet I felt a connection to this man. I got to know him at a real deep level, and I'm so glad that I put onto paper his story. And there were some really profound moments in writing this. One of them was finding these books and scrapbooks in my mom's closet, and she couldn't recall where she or how she got them. But this one slide shows Pete wearing his Anley sweater along with his brothers, and also at the local Santa Rosa Junior College where he played football. And that's him, number, I believe it's 20, sitting on the very far left. And he wasn't afraid of trying new sports, doing new things. He was just really an incredible individual. And just a couple of thoughts on, writing this this book, because again, there wasn't a lot of information. But I would have these profound experiences. One like finding the scrapbook, talking to some of Pete's friends who are still with us and hearing about some of their um, anecdotes and experiences with Pete. My Aunt Ginger sharing some information that I never heard before. So even though it was a challenge, I hopefully filled in as much as I could about Pete's life. Excuse me. I guess, if the audience is interested in remembering what about this whole experience, is that Pete was a human being. He had like all of us, he made mistakes, and he also was engaged to be married, and I knew that at some level. But another very profound experience was about 30 days before I went to publication. This individual contacted me, Marcia Onomiya Evans, and she said, "Oh, I'm Pete's fiance's niece." I, I was so taken aback by that experience. And we met with Marcia, and she shared with me some information about Holly, who was Pete's fiance. And, after Pete died, Holly never married, but she kept these mementos for which Marcia shared with our family. And it just was just so profound and touching that Hollywood would save these things like this locket that has her picture and Pete in it, and saved it all these years, and now they are in the Masuoka's hands. Um, so with that, I thank you for your time, and the book is available to anyone interested on Amazon, and should be available on June 1st and after that. And if you have any questions, please contact me. My email's on the screen. And um, just closing that, I thank Carol Kawase, Bruce Shimizu, Snow JCL, and I also, thank Pete and all the other Nisei who, gave their lives for our country and our liberty, um, and for showing that the Japanese Americans at that time were true Americans. Thank you.